Hi Smadar, welcome to the podcast. And for people who are watching, I want to say that Smadar is an Israeli American, and she is a PhD candidate of Jewish studies, and is also a professor who is teaching students about Jewish studies. So today, I'm extremely glad to talk about the current affairs in Israel with Smadar Goldstein. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview, Smadar. So my first question is that recently the Syrian regime spectacularly collapsed. Assad has departed and fled to Moscow, and the new forces that have occupied the power corridors in Syria are not any democratic forces. They were once associated with Al Qaeda terrorist organization. The departure of Assad. So, is the departure of Assad a positive or a negative development for Israel?
Well, I would say it's a positive because he was a terrorist himself, as you know, he killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of his own people, caused massive emigrations of his own citizens all over the world. So his regime collapsing is a good thing. It also shows the weakness of the Iranian control and Russian control that has occurred over the globe these past, since he's been in power. However, the people who took over, I wouldn't say are warm, fuzzy friends. They are also dangerous, and we need to be very careful. However, the fact that Israel was able to take out the Syrian army weapons cache in a few weeks makes the world a better place. So there's a positive that you can point to evidence that Syria no longer has an air force and a navy, and a lot of its weapons are destroyed. Those are gifts to the world, and the world should be thanking Israel and the IDF for doing that. What remains to be is that Israel must remain vigilant. We cannot say these are our friendly, positive, warm, fuzzy neighbors. That cannot happen. And we have to remain on very strict observation.
Okay. I mean, could this be a replay of Iraq? Because after toppling the Saddam Hussein regime, from the ashes of that regime came the ISIS. So, could it be a replay of that exact scenario?
I think things are also very different, and America at this point is a little bit in Syria, but not completely like it was in Iraq after America chose to heavily engage in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then America chose to leave Afghanistan and leave billions of dollars of military equipment in Afghanistan. So I don't, which supported ISIS indirectly. They didn't mean to do that directly, but that's what happened.
Sorry, I didn't understand. You are saying US presence in Afghanistan incentivized ISIS?
No, when America left Afghanistan, they left a lot of military equipment.
Okay.
They left helicopters and guns
Okay.
and Humvees and weapons. They just left. They didn't destroy American military equipment. They got up and they left.
Okay.
So you can look it up. Millions, hundreds of dollars of American military equipment, they left. So what's going to happen to it if you leave it in the hands of ISIS? It's going to empower them. So that is not happening right now in Syria. That America is doing very targeted actions, which is going to help the world, hopefully. So I'm hoping it will not be the same.
Okay. So Israel has started to bomb the military facilities in Syria, and U.S. administration has been warning. The Biden administration has been warning Israel not to take it too far because it might drag USA into this Syrian quagmire. So, how should Israel attack the defense capabilities of Syrian military infrastructure without escalating the war?
I think we've pretty much done. We've done what we've had to do, and it's finished. The weapon, most of the military equipment is gone.
Okay.
So
if Biden says something, I mean, Biden says don't do something, you have to exactly do it.
yes and no. I think he might have said it after it was already done.
No, what I'm saying is that he said don't go into Rafah, but it proved disastrous for Israel.
Yes.
So yeah, that's why I'm saying. So whenever is it a signal? Whenever Biden says don't do something, you exactly do that.
You have to look at the facts on the ground.
Okay.
And we very much respect and appreciate the military support America has given Israel and will hopefully continue to give Israel. On the other hand, don't go into Rafah. That's where the hostages are. That's where we found some hostages. That's where mass amounts of terrorism has been. That's where hundreds of tunnels from Gaza into Egypt were discovered. Tunnels wide enough to drive trucks through with weapons. So did Biden know that? Did he not know that?
But one prominent lady in the White House said that she had studied all the maps of Rafah and she knows everything. So yeah, that's why I'm asking you this.
Yeah, so clearly she was wrong. Politicians have been wrong before, and I'm sure they will continue to be wrong in the future. I wouldn't trust, I don't like
Okay.
politics.
So do those maps show the underground tunnels?
The ones that she looked at, no,
Yeah.
because we weren't allowed in at the time. They told us not to go in. Once we went in, you can look up on LinkedIn, you can look
Okay.
up on YouTube, Egyptian tunnels to Rafiah and to Rafah.
Okay.
You can find them. They are openly and available and accessible to
Okay.
anyone.
Okay. So, how are Israelis viewing this resounding victory of Trump in this 2024 election? So, some of his cabinet picks are staunch pro-Israelis, and the his ambassador pick for Israel, Mike Huckabee, is the most pro-Israel politician in USA. So, what's the mood in Israel right now with regards to American election result?
Most people are thrilled with the new incoming administration's approach to Israel and the unwavering support of Israel, no longer saying you can't do this, you can't do that, which basically means you can't protect yourself and flood Gaza with humanitarian aid. What other armies provides its enemy with humanitarian aid, which is then stolen by Hamas and sold at black market prices to recruit more. It's also twisted. So we most people here feel that they are excited about Mike Huckabee. They are excited about the incoming administration and that Israel will be able to support itself, will to protect itself fully and find the hostages and bring them home without having to release thousands of murderous terrorists again into society.
Okay. So after this October 7th attack, I read a lot of commentaries from prominent Jewish journalists, and they all unanimously said that they were not surprised by the virulent anti-Semitism that is being directed towards the Jewish people after the October 7th attack. I was surprised and outraged by the outrage that Israel received. So is this cynicism a part of Jewish cultural DNA?
I was surprised and outraged as well. I probably in shock for a month after the war. I couldn't do anything aside from volunteer and help. But I did not think that the world felt this way about Jews. However, if you look at any Jewish history book, if you look at the history of the Jews, there has not been, I think, another race or ethnicity that has been as persecuted. Certainly the Holocaust perpetrated by the Germans, but there's plenty of collaborators that were equally excited and supportive of the Germans. There's a book called, right here on my shelf, Hitler's Willing Executioners. It's by Daniel Jonah Goldman, who wrote how many surrounding countries were happily excited to find Jews and deport them. And I think the Jews have been kicked out of every single country in Europe since the Middle Ages. So anti-Semitism is not new to 24 or 23. I, however, was surprised and outraged and disappointed and depressed that it is as virulent apparently as centuries ago. I was not expecting it. However, I think people like you and other people in the world are supportive of Israel and are saying it, which is very important, bless you. And that didn't happen 80 years ago. So there's a change.
Okay. So recently, the prominent British journalist Douglas Murray, who's a staunch Israel supporter, said that anti-Semitism is a scourge that can never be eradicated or eliminated. If you believe and if you say that anti-Semitism can be made to disappear, you have no idea about what anti-Semitism means. Do you agree with him?
I agree with, I think, everything I've heard Douglas Murray say. He's a lot more educated. He knows a lot more than I do. Maybe I'm Jewish and religiously observant and he isn't, but he seems to know a lot about the Jews and their history and their people. So if he says that, I think I would trust him. I am disappointed to hear that he thinks that, but it's nothing personal. He's saying it as a historian and as a journalist. I hope one day it can change.
No, he was offering it as a lamentation.
Yeah, it's sad and I hope not true, but I would trust him. I trust the guy a lot.
Okay, so I recently conducted a couple of interviews with people from Israel, and I received some criticism from my friends and from my acquaintances that why I'm not willing to invite a person who has pro-Palestinian views. The thing is, how do I factor in the First Amendment? Factor in the First Amendment here, which offers the Americans the right to freedom of speech. Because I'm just morally confused here. in on September 12th, 2001, did anybody say that, okay, let's hear the views of Taliban? Or in December 1941, did anybody say that let's listen to the views of Japanese? So why should we try to listen to the views of pro-Palestinians today? I'm just really confused. Do you have any suggestions? Do you
No,
have
I agree with you. And there's another guy called Zach Sage also on social media, and he went into the West Bank and interviewed people on the street, women of all ages, men of all ages, saying, "Did you watch October 7th? And what do you think?" And they loved it, and they think it's great, and they should. And these Palestinians did not want to release the hostages. These Palestinians felt everything that happened on October 7th was accurate and justified. So why would I want to publicize that or share that, aside from sharing to the world their true colors? These were people, citizens on the street, who felt that way. It made me sick to see that is how people feel. And there was an article after October 7th that 70 to 80% of them support what happened. So I agree with you. Why do we need to support?
I asked you. I was seeking seeking counsel from you because I really don't know what to do when people say that why I don't invite a pro-Palestinian person.
You can ask them to find you one who knows Israeli history. And if they can say it, there's one, Yosef Haddad. He's an Israeli and he's a Palestinian, and he knows all about Israel, and he supports Israel vehemently. And you can bring him on your podcast. People who really want to hear, people who are asking you that want to hear bad things. If they're asking you about Arabs who are pro-Israel, they don't want to hear that. So they're not.
I'm an Indian citizen, so India and Pakistan have fought multiple wars. I'm just wondering if a conflict breaks out between India and Pakistan tomorrow, if I say that I want to listen to the views of Pakistanis, what would be the reaction of my fellow Indians?
That's right.
So,
Tell them that. So
sorry?
that's what you need to tell them.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't know. So, until a couple of decades ago, the US foreign policy used to be a product of bipartisan consensus. US foreign policy towards Israel used to be a product of bipartisan consensus. Today, the US politicians are divided into pro Israel and anti Israel camps. So, how should Israel navigate the fissures in the American political circles?
Israel has to stand tall and be proud of who and what they are, and stop being apologetic and stop saying, if only we did this, the Palestinians would love us and support us and want peace with us. That has proven to not be true. So we need to stand tall and say who we are. This is our country. We have fought for it militarily over and over again. We have lost more than 16,000 soldiers in 80 years. My two sons are in the army. All my friends' husbands are in the army. All my friends' boys are in the army. My daughter got married 2 months ago, and her husband, after a month, had to go to the Gaza border and fight against terrorists infiltrating the border. So after a month, her husband was gone in the army thank God he came back. He's fine now. But for a month, she was alone. And so this is our history and our people, and we get called up again and we fight again and again. And we need to stop apologizing for it.
Okay. So the Palestinians have made their statement on October 7th that they are not interested in two-state solution. But the Western leaders, especially the center to the left Western leaders, have started to drumbeat about the two-state solution once again. I mean, should Israel be accommodative towards a two-state solution now? Because if Israel signals its willingness to a creation of a Palestinian state, would not October 7th be an incentive to the Palestinians?
Of course, I do not believe in a two-state solution. I never have, not before.
That's the only thing now Israel and Palestinians have in common. Both of them do not want a two-state solution.
Right.
That's the only thing that unites them.
But they don't want one because they want to eradicate Israel entirely. We don't want one because we know that they want to eradicate Israel entirely.
Yeah, that's the implication. Yeah.
Most people, a lot of my friends are more left-wing and wanted and supported people in my family that supported it and wanted it. And we need to make peace with them and love them and care for them. And then October 7th happened, and a lot of them are saying, well, we were wrong. People who we reached out to on the Arab sector and we tried to take care of them and help them and work with them, they came to kill us. And who came to save us is the IDF. And do you know that 60% of the soldiers who were killed in the IDF come from my community. I identify, it's called religious Zionism, that I am a Zionist and I keep Judaism to the best of my ability. 60% of the boys killed in the war were from people in my community. The ones who wear kippah, a yarmulke, the ones who keep things like Shabbat, if you know what that is. And we only make up out of the population. Do you know how much of the population is the religious Zionist community? 16, 1/6. So 16% of the community had 6D representation in deaths and wounded, because we care about the land we live in. And no, we do not want to partner with a murderous entity. Why would anybody want to do that?
But why the Western leaders have started to resurrect this idea of two-state solution when the Palestinians have made it clear that they don't want a two-state solution and they want only the eradication of Israel?
The woke liberal culture has gone so far that it comes to bite itself on the back. If they elect all these non-peace loving Muslims into society and they elect Sharia law in the United States, guess what? There won't be any liberal culture at all. So there's some kind of brainwave problem in people's heads.
You're too blunt. Yeah.
It's true. And also, countries like Qatar and Iran have been funding places in the United States and China that they have no business funding. Why
So
should
China's largely remained silent in this conflict, right?
No, I think they're supporting, I think they're friends with Russia and they're supplying weapons.
Okay. What happened to the Chinese? They used to be a very philo-Semitic people, right? Well, what happened?
Not an expert in that area, but they certainly have not become a friend of Israel. China, Russia, Iran mostly, but Qatar, which has a lot of money, is funding a lot of campuses in the United States. They're creating like departments of Palestinian history. What does that mean? The word Palestinian only came to be after 1964. There was no flag. Palestinian flag is just a Jordanian flag without a star. These are things that are they're not historical. There's no context. Before 1964, there were Arabs. There's Syrian Arabs, Jordanian Arabs, Egyptian Arabs. They all don't get along. They all don't love each other. And all of a sudden, Nasser Arafat, who was not a good person at all, he was corrupt. He was treacherous. He came up with all these things. And for some reason, the American culture gobbled it up. And Qatar and Iran are funding money into American systems, and America has open borders over the years, and people are infiltrating governmental positions, legal positions, police positions, military positions. So now you have people with this philosophy in college campuses, in politics, in military positions, and in the police department and the justice department. So this is what's going to happen.
Okay. The center right in Israel exactly warned of a scenario like October 7th when Ariel Sharon decided to unilaterally disengage from Gaza in 2005. Why did the center left failed to listen to the critics?
We don't know. People, again, either here were trying to believe in something that didn't exist. Everybody wants a happy story. So either they look the other way, but somebody somewhere knew something. There was too much evidence. Even my friends who are in the army, they knew things they saw them training. They saw them pretending to attack the kibbutzim in the south, Hamas. They saw them running, going in the paragliders. They saw them training these things and doing these things, and they reported it, and they were told, no, it's nothing.
It was a huge political failure. It was not an intelligence failure.
Yes, but somebody knew. It doesn't mean that nobody knew.
People think October 7th was an intelligence failure. No, September 11, 2001 was an intelligence failure. October 7th was not an intelligence failure because the intelligence in Israel knew of this attack. They tried to warn the political and military brass about this, but they dismissed those warnings casually.
Right. It could have been just hatred of one another. I am no expert. Either they said, look, maybe we'll let them in a little bit. They thought it wouldn't be so bad. They thought Hamas would come in and maybe just
One theory is that the Israel military and Israel political establishment thought that Islamic Jihad is the primary opponent, a primary threat to them, and not Hamas. But yeah, they were completely wrong.
They were wrong. And people who are in the Shabak, one person killed himself already. One died of cancer. Another one got fired. But it will come out eventually. And people who are responsible should go to jail forever. But a lot of people are responsible. We don't know who they are yet, but
I mean, go to jail. Are you saying people who are responsible for it to go? Are you saying Bibi should go to jail?
If he's responsible, yes. Is he completely responsible? He was clearly not told what he should have been told. I don't think it reached his ears. I don't think he knew. I think people under him knew and didn't let him see.
Oh, okay.
But on the other hand, it is his responsibility to make sure he knows everything. So people that he appointed, who appointed them in Israel, the military is not elected. It's not a government official. They're appointed.
Is it not like saying that FDR should have gone to jail in 1947, 1941 for failing to prevent the Pearl Harbor attack?
For failing to prevent what?
Pearl Harbor attack?
Pearl Harbor? Probably. Why shouldn't he? If he knew about it, if he knew about it, if he was responsible in some way, was his president responsible for the Pearl Harbor attack? If Americans feel that he should have been responsible, yeah, but look, terrorism is an international threat, right? What about 9/11? Who's responsible for that? The president. Oh, he didn't seem to hold responsibility. America's system, I think, is a bit different. I don't think it works like our system here. We're a much smaller country, right? Altogether, we're what? 15 million people? 9 million? No, I think we're 9 million, 6 million, 7 million.
9 million.
9 million. So 7 million Jews and 2 million. It's a tiny country. So it's like there is a lot more interconnectedness. So there's a lot more accountability. And you know a lot more people. So if you appoint someone, if you're the head of the military and you appoint someone, it's harder to say, I didn't know. Or it's harder to say.
I mean, it was clearly a negligence of duty, but should one should one be sent to a jail for negligence of duty?
Who's responsible? The buck has to stop somewhere.
Stop some.
So then then who should go to jail if not negligence of duty?
Yeah, you're right. So President Trump, yes, he's a staunch supporter of Israel, but he hates war. He does not like war. At some point of time, he is bound to tell Bibi that stop this war. I am giving you this much amount of time. Before that, you have to wind this war down. This conversation is definitely going to happen. So how should Bibi and Israelis handle this potential future scenario?
They should get the hostages back. They should get rid of Hamas as much as they can. We've had to control. I know a lot of friends in the army because it's a small country, and everyone told me who was fighting in Gaza, the Americans won't let us fight. The Americans won't let us finish. The Americans won't let us do what we want to do. So what we need to do to destroy Hamas, because someone's pretending that Hamas are warm, fuzzy teddy bears, and they're not terrorists. So if we can get rid of Hamas the way we want to, the way we could have in a month instead of in 15 months, then no problem. Get rid of Hamas, we'll get rid of Hamas. We find the hostages, we heal as a country. The entire country is in trauma. Every age, every gender, every person who lives in every city has trauma. Everybody knows someone who was killed.
Yeah.
So we cannot begin our full healing process until the hostages are released or found.
Okay. So the Arab Israelis living inside Israel have more freedom than the Arabs living in the neighboring Arab countries.
Yes.
But why Israel is losing this PR war? Why Israel is being subjected to this apartheid accusation?
I think a few reasons. One is they haven't put as much effort into it as they do into things like military or Iron Dome. All the money goes into military budget and not enough into PR. So they have to put more funding into it. The other thing is this woke culture that's taken a grip of Europe in an insane way, and in America in an insane way. Europe allowing in millions and millions of Muslims and saying it's going to be great. They're saying it's not always great. There was just an attack in Germany about the Christmas market. And 5 people died, including a child by a Saudi immigrant, right? So it's not great letting in the Muslim culture into the radical Muslim culture into Europe and America and having it take over in some ways. And there's more of them than there are of us, and people are afraid to speak out. I think there are a lot of good people in the world who support Israel. They just don't make as much noise. They don't go out and burn things, and that's a good thing. And they don't go out and take over Times Square, and that's a good thing. But they need to make more noise and get on more TV shows and share more on social media and be more proud of supporting Israel and of supporting right from wrong and having a moral compass and knowing wrong from right and not being afraid to say it.
So what was your initial reaction after you learned about the October 7th attack? If possible, can you talk about what was going through your head after you learned about the attack? Do you personally know anyone who had been killed in that Nova Music massacre?
I don't know anyone who was killed at the massacre. Actually, no, Poland Goldberg lived a few blocks from me.
What?
So, yeah, I live in Jerusalem. So there's pictures of him on every block.
Okay.
And he's
Have
American.
you seen him?
Pardon?
Have you seen him?
He was killed
No, before.
before.
You
No,
were having.
he went to high school with my friend's daughter's husband.
Okay.
And my son had two friends killed on October 7th and two of his teachers. My younger son's high school principal was killed a few weeks later because he's a commando and he was looking for the hostages in Gaza in the first few weeks of the war. And he was killed by an exploding tunnel. My daughter's friend from kindergarten was killed in fighting in Gaza. He was a paratrooper, and the list unfortunately goes on. So not from the music festival, Colbert, Poland, but from soldiers and people who have been killed and wounded. We know many from the neighborhood. I haven't even told there's another one up the block who was killed, another one down that block who was killed. So what happened that day is that we woke up to air raid sirens, that we knew there were rockets coming in. So you have to run to your bomb shelter, which we have downstairs. And I was home with my older daughter and her friend's sister, who was 8 years old. So we ran to our shelter and then we heard another siren. We've had, but this time there were a lot. So I had at the time 2 dogs. Now I only have one. So I took them out to find out what was going on. It was the holiday of Simchat Torah, which is a Jewish holiday where I don't listen to TV or turn on my phone. But I went out to the street to ask people who do listen to TV and do have phones what was going on. And they told me there's a massive terrorist attack. Hamas has taken over all the kibbutzes in the south. They've kidnapped citizens and it was terrible. So I ran home and I told the girls and I was crying. They said, Mommy, don't worry, it'll be fine. But obviously it wasn't fine. It was a big shock. And nobody came home. My son, who was in the army at the time, but not called up, came home and he said the army was going to come pick him up. So he had to get his things. So he came home, put on his uniform and they picked him up. And again, this is a holiday where it's like Shabbat. We don't drive. We don't answer our phones. So to see your son come home in a car on a day where we don't do that and put on a uniform on a day where we won't do that, it was very shocking and scary.
So, did the Hamas consciously choose the October 7th, the date of October 7th, because it is a holy day for Jewish people?
Yes.
Okay.
In 1973, they chose to attack on Yom Kippur, the Egyptian army.
50th anniversary of.
That was 1973, yes.
I mean, it was not a coincidence then.
No, they do this on purpose because they know we often have less military presence on call. They know we are celebrating our holidays and we want to be with our families. They do it to inflict more pain and as much pain as possible.
Okay. So would you say that as an American Israeli, would you say that Trump is the most pro-Israel president that USA has ever had?
Well, I'm in my 50s, so I don't know ever in history. But you're saying my lifetime, or how far back are you going?
Since 1945, since 1947, since the creation of Israel.
1948? Hard to say.
It looks like that because his statements, his rhetoric, and his actions, and he has a personal Jewish connection. His grandkids and his daughter are observant Jewish people.
Yeah, probably. And so we're hopeful that we can protect ourselves the way we should and the way we need to.
Okay. So I have observed, I mean, I've been living in America for the past 6 years, and I have observed that the Jewish people in America who support Israel are sometimes dual loyalty, and the Jewish people in America who don't support Israel are being labeled as self-hating Jews. So how should the Jews in America should handle this current scenario?
Look at the countries where Jews have been persecuted to such a degree that they've left, right?
Oh.
If you look at the world map, there are
Okay.
no Jews in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Libya,
Okay.
very few in Syria, very few in Iran, very few in Egypt. Look at those countries and how they contribute to the world to make it a better place. They don't. Those countries are ones that make the world a worse place, the world has to worry and figure out how to help them. Look at the country where there are large Jewish populations, where there is technology, there is innovation, there is medical care, there is health care, there are ways to bring water to Africa. The place where Jews have been given freedom and been able to thrive, have been able to help advance those countries in every human way possible. So if people want to take a step back and just look at facts, where are the Jews? Where are the host countries, if you want to call it a host country? And how successful are they in any field that helps the world? You don't need to ask me. You can just look at reality. How many innovations have come out of Gaza that help the world? How many have come out of Israel?
Okay, got it. Yeah. So, as an American, what kind of thoughts goes into, as an American, what kind of thoughts you have when you look at the American university campuses that have become a hotbed of anti-Semitism? How do we even begin to rectify it?
It's outrageous. It should be illegal. If they would replace the word with everything they're saying, if they would take the word Jew or Israel out and replace it with any other minority, what do you think would happen?
Yeah, got it. Understand. Yeah.
So therefore, right, replace it, choose a minority, replace the word Jew and Israel and replace it.
Okay.
It would be canceled, shut down, put in jail, never work again, be kicked out of the universities.
Okay. And suddenly these university heads have discovered the virtues of free speech, right?
It's not free speech, it's hate speech. And if you believe that hate speech is a thing, then you shouldn't shut it down.
Okay.
And of course it's a thing, because look at the world. And they should, look, again, they're getting Qatar funding. Why is Qatar funding American universities? Are we funding Qatari universities? Is America funding Qatar universities?
Okay.
And they're getting title and federal funding, billions and millions of dollars. These universities get federal funding from the government. So that basically means the government, the American government, is agreeing that these encampments are okay. And if the American government disagrees, then the American government should do one of two things: stop their federal funding or do something about it and stop the Qatari funding that is going into these universities that pay for university salaries, that open new departments, that build campuses on universities. It's all part of the same thing.
Okay. So what was your initial reaction when you watched the testification of Harvard University President Claudine Gay, where she did not denounce the people calling for the genocide of Jewish people?
Absolutely nauseating. Again, replace the word, replace that genocide of Jews, replace that of any other minority, and ask her how she feels about it then.
Okay, let me play the devil's advocate here. So some people would say that she should have been protected by the freedom of speech. She should have been protected by the First Amendment that grants Americans the freedom of speech.
But there's also an American law that says if it causes incitement or terrorism or causes acts of violence, then that's illegal, or then that's not okay. And if it causes an act of violence, or if it causes someone to feel unsafe, or if it causes an unsafe environment, then that's not okay.
Okay.
It's causing an unsafe environment. And did it lead to other things? Of course it led to other things. Anti-Semitism in the world is up like 600%. In every country now, the acts of anti-Semitism have increased exponentially. So your words matter. And if your words matter and they lead to actions, then you have to watch your words. In Germany, they're very careful about things like that. You're not allowed to say things like that because they know that it leads to bad things.
So this is my final question, which is 79% of American Jews have voted for Biden goes to the DNC convention in August and says that the pro-Hamas protesters who were protesting outside the Chicago Convention Center at some point. I thought Biden, the Democratic Party, completely lost the Jewish vote. I thought there was going to be a mass exodus of Jewish people from Democratic Party to Republican Party. But 79% of American Jews have voted for Democratic Party. I'm not saying that Jews should not vote for Democratic Party, but help me understand. So is Israel not the first priority is Israel not one of the main priorities for Jewish people when it comes to voting in the American election?
For some Jews, not all Jews, right? Okay. About 7 million Jews in Israel and another maybe 7 million in the rest of the world.
Okay.
Right? We're not even back up to pre-1939 days.
Okay.
So not all Jews are connected to Israel, and not all Jews identify as Jews, and not all Jews think being Jewish is good. And there's nothing, that's just the way of the world. Also, people are concerned about American policy, and some people feel that democratic law is better for American policy, and they're less concerned with foreign policy.
Okay.
Which I also understand, but I think that most people who are strongly connected to Israel and strongly connected to their Judaism did vote for the Republican Party.
Thank you, Smadar. Thank you so much for your time and your insightful answers, and thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.